Welcome to the American Mandate. I'm Camden.
I'm Grady.
So we can say a lot happened and a lot didn't happen this weekend. And I think this is the first topic I kind of want to talk about, which is it's more of the same. And I think if we take a looking at all politics like through past 20 years, it really does feel the same. I know some MAGA people would be like, oh no, Trump is sweeping through and doing all these executive orders. He's doing a lot of stuff. He is. That's true. But it feels like we're going around the same Ferris wheel. And it's like there's a new thing, like Israel cutting off supplies to Gaza, cutting off electricity. Sweet, we're doing the Israeli versus Palestine thing again. I mean, Macklemore came out with an FU song recently, just like talking about how there's a genocide there. And that's the same shtick, whether it's we're talking about Israel and Hamas, whether we're talking about Russia and Ukraine, whether we're talking about Haiti when that was the thing a few years ago. Like, the whole political landscape is just to create us more partisan. And I think the strongest argument is we've never been as partisan as we are now. I mean, I think about 20th century, how Nixon just landslided. How when it was Nixon versus JFK, it was close election because both were qualified. Mm-hmm. And JFK won because he was way more charismatic. And FDR literally won 4 terms. So you look at just human history as far as everything goes in America, we're as partisan as we are right now, but I really think it's a facade because it's more so like there's kind of this tiers that I was kind of just thinking about this weekend of how there's the political figures on top, like Nancy Pelosi's, Donald Trump's, Chuck Schumer's, all those people that are just they're the ones getting all the power. Then you have the people like Ben Shapiro and Rachel Maddow, if you want. I don't think she really has influence, but like those kind of people that kind of spread the agenda. And then you have these Harry Sisson characters and all these guys that are like really trying to just push people in one direction or the other, some like hardcore fans. Then there's just us, where like all I care about is whether or not I can afford to replace the alternator in my wife's car, whether I can afford to buy a home, whether I can go to work and make it on time because the roads aren't crap. Like, that's the stuff I care about. That's the table issues that they always talk about in politics, but they really don't care. And I think that's why we focus so much on like the egg prices, is it's something that has been latched onto. I worry about the political landscape because if you talk to normal everyday Americans, most of them are just like I've said, just trying to figure out day-to-day life. Yes, they care about abortion, some more than most. I'm very anti-abortion. Some other people I've talked to are very pro-abortion, and that is their issue, besides the tabletop issues. And most Americans, if you talk to them, don't understand what's going on in Ukraine. They just think, oh, Russia attacked Ukraine and killing people. That's their base of their level. Israel and Hamas. They think Israel was attacked on October 7th, and that's when it started. But they're also see like, oh, all the children dying in Palestine, Israel's the evil. When really, both kind of suck. Like, there's just issues in our global politics that there's not nuance, and it's a full-time job to stay completely informed.
Yeah. I think Trump has lost the momentum. I think that State of the Union was basically the finale of this, I don't know what you would call it, basically
the honeymoon period.
The honeymoon period. And now that that's ended, it just feels like everything is ground to a halt. I don't see anything really happening. We still haven't gotten the Epstein files. There's no end in sight for the Ukraine war, even though, like a week ago I saw Zelensky change his mind and he was going to come back to the table. And it's like, okay, well, where are we with that?
It's gone back and forth like 10 times.
Yeah, like what? And then like Israel, Hamas, it's just like, did the ceasefire end or not? I just keep hearing different things. Like now they're getting more hostages, but then it's like, oh, it's over. We're going back to war, full send. And then it's like, oh no, we're getting more hostages. Like, can we just, like, what happened to the momentum? You know what I mean?
Like everyone in our, like, here's the base level of why we voted for Donald Trump. Inflation was ridiculously high, and it felt like what the Democrats and the Biden administration were doing were increasing it. I mean, that the whole what was that check called from COVID? That stimulus check. That put so much more debt on our country, and it was like, yeah, sweet, you gave us $2,000 here, $2,000 there. It was nice little like breather. I did not need that, even though I worked 2 jobs at the time. It was money that was like nice, but it went away as quick as it came because just life. And we voted out Biden because there was, oh look, Afghanistan. Oh look, like there was incompetence in our leadership. Now that we have Donald Trump in power, it's business as usual. And I'm not trying to just downplay Donald Trump's term because I think he's doing better than most people would have done. That's why I voted for the guy. But the root cause of like fighting with Canada, and it feels like, oh, we're doing a tariff war. Cool. I don't care. Like, it doesn't affect our prices. Like, if you actually look at the numbers, it really doesn't affect our prices that crazily. I mean, if you look around the state of Arizona, there's other issues, and like I'm finding prices are $270 or less. Like, we live in the greater Phoenix area, and so it looks, when I was talking on the podcast about gas prices last week, it was like, oh, it jumped up 80 cents. That's true. Everywhere else around the state that takes just regular conventional gas, that doesn't take like the very like special gas that's like environmental friendly, is 80 cents less. And so I don't know the cause of that, but overall, I think that nothing is changing in the world, and it's quite I don't know if it's depressing. It's more so just like, I think that's the more side of when you say who does it matter when who we vote in, because it's the same shtick. Like, it just changes who we're at war with, who we care about. And Trump's trying to change the focus to China and try to go against and end all these wars. When we get a Democrat in, who are we going to go against? Right. It's going to be somebody. It's going to be Russia. Yeah. And then when we go to Republican, it's going to be China, because those are the 2 superpowers.
Well, if we were to get a different Republican, if we were to get an establishment Republican, it would be Iran. That's who they'd want to go to war with.
Oh, 100%. Which Iran is such a minor threat.
It's such small potatoes compared to the rest of the world.
Like, our job should be to not let all these countries get nuclear weapons. Not let any. Like, I think I saw a report that Hungary was like looking into a nuclear program. No, stop.
We're done.
We're done. What the main thing that United States, Russia, and China should do is, like, United States should not be trying to convince China to the table to get rid of nuclear weapons. They're not going to agree with it. What they should be doing, in my mind, is United States, Russia, and China create a coalition that says, we are going to denuclearize the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And once you denuclearize the rest of the world and make sure so no one else has nuclear weapons, UK doesn't have it, Hungary doesn't have it, and it's only the 3 powerhouses who are really the only 3 countries that are actually going to start World War III, if there was going to be one, then you 3 countries can slow down. Because why are we not worried about North Korea?
Yeah.
Like, remember when that was a whole thing, like 2 seconds ago? And now we don't care.
Haven't even thought about them.
Haven't even thought about them. And that's the thing. It's just another Monday. Like, next Monday, who are we talking about? That's the issue.
I think Trump deserves a little bit more credit. I think things have changed for the better.
Agreed.
In the country, maybe not the world, but in the world too. But I think he's made Europe and NATO step up in a way that they never would have, and that's huge. I mean, they just made an $800 billion commitment like over the past couple days. But I think normally having any other president in it would be same old, and it doesn't feel like that. But to be fair, what this feels like is what any other president felt like. It just slows down a little bit. There's periods where there's not a whole lot happening. It might take longer to get wars ended than we hoped. But we're not giving him credit for the first month, which was wild.
The thing is that
at least domestically,
I do give Trump a lot of credit because it was a pretty successful month, and he's trying to get things figured out. I like Donald Trump more than Bush, both, and I like him better than Obama, Clinton, and of course Biden. But what I'm really trying to get at here is, like, with Donald Trump to be a successful president, he has to do what basically LBJ did and FDR did, which basically is to enshrine his policies in policy. Executive orders don't mean anything.
In law, yeah.
Having a treaty doesn't mean nothing. I mean, think about the Abraham Accords that were supposed to be this great thing for the Middle East, and it was great. It was actual peace. Look how fast that blew up.
Yeah.
Like, Saudi Arabia's doing their own thing, and now they're kind of a middle ground of the Middle East. Jordan, Iran, all these countries are now trying to dogpile on Israel. Israel's now infighting in the Gaza Strip because technically the funny thing is, technically by the UN standards, Israel has so much influence over Gaza that Gaza is not considered anything, and it's considered owned by Israel. So it's just
Middle East is such a lost cause, in my opinion. It was the U.S. destabilized that region beyond repair. I mean, the U.S. is, I would say, 90% to blame for the current state of the Middle East. We came in and we decided to listen to Israel and go to war with Iraq and Afghanistan, but especially Iraq. And we spent 20 years in Afghanistan, and then we just handed it back over to the Taliban. And we worked with Saudi Arabia, which is not a good country, let's be clear. We worked with Saudi Arabia to basically terrorize Yemen.
I think,
and we tried to overthrow Assad in Syria, and that eventually worked. And now look what's going on in Syria, a complete civil war. All civilians are being murdered on them mass right now. It's just the U.S. time and time again has engaged in disastrous policy in the Middle East, and it has not led to any good return at all.
I think it's deeper than that, though, because the United States is the one that always gets the blame, and they deserve it, a lot of the blame, because they are the global power of the West. They're the global power of the world, and so they deserve it. But the whole Israel thing was a rock that was pushed in motion by the United Kingdom. They kicked it down the hill, and it started rolling in momentum, and then the United States came with a bat and smacked it. That's basically what happened. And that's kind of what the United States does to everything. Oh, we're allied with Israel. Israel wants us to do said thing. All right, instead of just letting it progress and it will slowly go down, why don't we just smack it and just let it go all the way down the hill?
Every president has bent over backwards and let Israel fuck them in the ass and do whatever they want for the past 60 years. I would like a president who doesn't do everything they tell them. That's what I'd like.
I don't want the United States...
Because Trump, in his first term, bent over backwards and let Israel do whatever they want, and he's doing it again. Whatever. But if we go to war with Iran, he'll lose me there. You know.
I think the difference with that, though, is there's a lot of things we can talk about with Israel and Palestine. There's a lot of issues in that region, and I think it's not as black and white as we often make it.
It's not black and white, but people make it black and white by saying Israel are the good guys.
It's basically like Israel is the side that you want to control the territory. That doesn't mean they are the right side of history always. And I think that's kind of the issue, is that, like, whenever you talk to someone, say, that's pro-Palestine, right? They have a total claim on the side that Gaza was it's basically a territory that is being pressured by Israel, and there's a lot of kids and a lot of innocent women that are dying. That is a clear thing. And they're like, look at the history. The history didn't start on October 7th. Look at this history going back and back and back. Then you look at the Israel side. It's like they were attacked October 7th. It's urban warfare. And then also go a little further in history from Palestine. You go back and back and back and back and back and see this conflict has been going on.
Yeah, it's been a back and forth since 1940.
Because it's more than just Palestine and Israel. I mean, like, it's going all the way back. It's Israel versus Muslim countries. That's basically, it's Jews versus Muslims. That's basically when it started. And Palestine is more of an insult name, and then people adopted it. And then now we're coming in the 20th century. Now it's Israel versus Palestine, because Israel had religion is tied to that territory, and it's a holy place. And what else? Where are you supposed to put Palestinians? You're going to kick them out? It's their territory as well. And so, but but then you can't have them there because Palestinians literally are putting in Hamas, a terrorist organization that kills women and children, and
You know who else is to blame for propping up Hamas? Netanyahu.
Yes.
He propped them up. He worked with them, and then they began to terrorize his people. I don't 100% blame him for that, but I do put some blame on him. I can put as much blame on that as I can for blaming Obama for propping up ISIS in Syria.
That's kind of getting to the whole point, is that our entire country and world politics hasn't changed in the past 140 years. It's just consistently this going around and around and around of like the same conflicts. It's always the Middle East. It's always with Russia. It's always with China. I think the only piece of like light I see here is Donald Trump's the only one willing to work with Russia and to be like, we're not in the Cold War anymore. Why are we still fighting you? Like, the
NATO
whole point
was made to
fight
the
Russia.
Soviet Union.
Yes.
Which doesn't exist. Hasn't existed in 30 years.
And it's evolved into fighting Russia.
It's just, it needs to end. I'm sorry, I know we disagree on that, but NATO is from a bygone era. It doesn't pay up, and the U.S. should not have to defend these people if they don't pay up. And Russia, I really believe, is not the enemy that they are made out to be. And they shouldn't be. It's in the world's best interest to have a good relationship with Russia. I don't care how you feel about them. It is in the world's best interest to have a good relationship with Russia. It's in the world's best interest to have a good relationship with China. I don't care how bad they are. In North Korea, you want to have a bad relationship with these people? You want to go to nuclear war? This is just common sense. And people are like, oh, Russia are the bad guys. We need to fight them. We need to stop them. It's like, it's a nuclear superpower. Have some common sense. You need to be diplomats here.
I thought about the whole NATO thing, and the reason I think I would turn NATO into the UN and get rid of the UN. And I would get rid of the NATO contract that says you immediately have to go into war. That's more where my mindset is, because I think it's important to have a world stage where America is in charge of that diplomacy, because we basically create these programs. Like, we push the United Nations, right? And we do a whole bunch of the funding, but we basically create ways for us to be effed over. We're like, oh yeah, anything we want can immediately be vetoed by China and by Russia. Oh, anything we want to do, all these superpowers are going to support the terrorist states. And so we've basically just created a world where we just show up and be like, yeah, we don't like what you're doing, and then a whole bunch of people crap on us, and then we leave. Like, I don't want to be part of a treaty that says you have to send your sons and daughters to go fight a war in Germany.
Right, and if China were to invade the Pacific coast today, how many of those NATO countries would come and help? Zero. None.
Well, let's say they did.
Not
With
a
what?
No, not a single one of them.
No,
because they have nothing.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Let's say they did want to help. Who are they going to send over?
Nobody. They have nothing.
They don't have anybody.
They don't have money. They don't have equipment.
anything.
They don't have people. They have nothing.
Because their entire
NATO is literally a giant honeypot for the world to take from America.
All it is
they contribute nothing.
It's a place for the United States to basically be like, I want a base in the United Kingdom.
Right.
Here's my base.
That's the only upside, and I think the negatives outweigh the positives, like bar none. I think we need to get out of NATO.
No, we need to have individual relationships. Our relationship with Japan is far better than anything else in
right, but
Europe.
we have an agreement with Japan that basically says, like, if they get attacked, we have to defend them. But if they get attacked, or if we get attacked, they don't have to defend us. That was what Trump was saying just a couple days ago. He goes, I love Japan. We have a great relationship with Japan, but the current treaty we have with them is completely retarded.
That's what I'm saying. We need individual treaties, not just this blanket treaty that, anyone who comes into NATO, we'll protect you. No, I want to have a independent. I think Japan's relationship, especially with China and especially with Russia, literally right there, having that relationship with Japan is better than anything Europe can offer us. So let's modify that treaty, put money into that region, where that's our current problem. I mean, that's what they said in the military pamphlet that was like 10-year plan, basically, of like what our issues are. And this is where our military focus should be.
There are good countries there.
It's China.
Poland, to a degree, Hungary, Italy for sure, El Salvador, Argentina. These are good countries that are pro-West and are working with Trump, and I think are genuine allies. And then there's some that I just think aren't. I mean, France and the United Kingdom have gone so far down.
France, the United Kingdom
Germany to a degree. They might be getting better, but probably not.
No, they're getting worse. They're
Are
becoming
they?
a totalitarian state. I mean, the fact that you're saying that you cannot speak and do these certain
Well, they
things.
just won a new election. I don't know if it's going to change anything, but at least the left is out now. It's more of a middle ground party, but they're still bad.
The world has shifted to the left in politics, but to the right as far as in people.
Yeah.
And so it's a miracle Donald Trump got elected.
Right.
Like, that tells you how bad Biden had to be for it to move to the right.
I mean, think of everything he was going against. He was going against every donor in the world. He's going against all special interests, the deep state, every politician, all of Hollywood, half of the country, and he still managed to get in. That's pretty incredible, just in and of itself.
It is. I want to kind of in the whole partisan thing. I want to shift to the kind of this that's basically kind of come out. So it's been mostly a Pacific Northwest issue, that being where I'm from, where the right side of Washington, basically, and the right side of Oregon want to become part of Idaho. And it's called the Greater Idaho Movement. And they're consistently voting to basically be a part of it. And now Illinois, after everything that's happening in Chicago, 33 counties in Illinois are like, I want to become a new state, or I want to be part of Indiana. And Indiana has said, yeah, sure. Idaho has voted in for their Congress and said, yeah, we'll talk with Oregon about it. The process with that happening is the state has to willingly vote on it and say, yeah, sure, you can leave. I mean, we've changed our borders through the states, I think like 150 times in our history, but it's always been minor things. I like the idea in concept of being like, yeah,
It'll never happen.
This is all the right. So I would like to move back to Washington, but be a part of the right side of it and not have like the right be dictated by Olympia in Seattle, Washington. The reason it's a bad idea is think about the state of Arizona and how much the politics have just gone up and down, up and down.
Yeah.
Like if the county, like I know they've been historically like right and left in Washington state. I think this is just this is a thing that never ends. If you want to change the state of Washington to become Republican, you need to put the resources there and change it. And it might take 5 to 10 years to change it, but the Republican Party has basically states that are left historically, they've just left. And same thing with the left side. They've just kind of left those states. States that like kind of surprised, like Iowa when it switched from Obama to Trump and it's been a Republican stronghold, or Ohio where it's been a swing state in the past couple elections, just has not been that. It's just been a Republican stronghold.
I mean, Florida used to be a swing state.
That just happens with culture and things moving and shifting over time. And so do I think Washington or California will ever turn red? No.
It'll never happen. Same with New York.
But asking to be make this state and make a greater Idaho, I think it just that creates an issue where you just start having states just become like they're becoming more like instead of 50, like
becomes
15.
an echo chamber of policy, which in practice is like, oh great, I can go move to a state that's 100% thinks like me, and to a degree that's a good thing, but to another degree is like I don't mind living here. I don't like that it's a swing state, but at the same time it's like there's work to be done in this state. And it has enough of the policies that I want to live here. But if I were to go live in New York, it's just totalitarianly left. You know, it's just awful.
And a lot of that, but the thing about that is that like a lot of the outer areas, and like if you looked at a map, it looks like it's Republican. And it's just these cities that run it. And that's the whole point of the Electoral College.
To a degree, but you'd be surprised how many people in the rural areas are really left.
No, like New York and California are probably some of the left-leaning places, even in the Republican areas. Yeah. But I'm just saying is that if we just play this game of like, oh, let's cut states in half because there's Republican and left, what do you think that's going to do? Right. That just makes it more partisan. Yeah, that's all it does. Like if I want to go and it's my argument that I made against Sean, our UK friend, which was like, what's great about United States is that if I don't like the culture I'm surrounded with, I can move to a different state and it's a different culture. Right. The right side of Washington's culture is not really much different than the left, at least when I've been around it. It's mostly just like, it's a little bit more hot over on the right, a little bit more Pacific. You get a little bit more of the hippies over towards the city, and you get a lot more of the homelessness. But in reality, they're all Washingtonians.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of and so like separating them and putting them into Idaho's a totally different culture and belief system. Like it's more Republican, you more agree with them, but it's just is like splitting up our economic system also for those states. Like even though it might be small because Republicans mostly hold the rural areas, it's still a huge part of their budget just shifted away, and now it's into Idaho. How does that feel for the new countries, the new states, though? Like now they have a whole bunch of counties that now dominate their politics.
Right.
So I don't know what I'm trying to get at with talking about that piece. I just think it's more understanding of how partisan we've become, that these movements are like so like powerful. I guess.
Like if I was living in New York and somebody seriously proposed cutting off the city and making that a separate thing, I would cheer. I mean, that would be amazing.
Right.
But our state would collapse because our GDP would cease to exist. So it's just not feasible in any sense of the word. I mean, I would love for California to just secede and fall into the Pacific. I mean, it's one of the worst states in the world.
Yeah, except they have the fifth greatest GDP.
But they have the biggest GDP in the country. It'd be so stupid to do that.
I think it's like they're like almost fifth or sixth in the world or something like that, like just on their own. And so like California, we can deal with the crazies. We just need, I think Trump should he builds the wall between Mexico and America, and then he builds a wall around California, and we just take the tax money from that and just like say, you guys do you. I think that would be the best way to solve that. But I don't know. I all of this podcast today is just like, it's not really talking about anything specific as far as like a policy that changed or a new thing that's happening, because it's the same shtick. All we're doing is being more partisan. All we're doing is creating more arguments. Like I look on X and it's just like famous people being like, hey, just it's happy International Women's Day, except even though everyone on here hates women. Like I'm seeing those posts from people like iJustine and stuff like that. I'm like, are you that like in your echo chamber that you don't understand that the normal people love women and like really support
we all have
women?
Mothers. I mean, like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Many of us have sisters. Some people have, wives, daughters. I mean, I hate women because I'm on the right. Okay.
And that's kind of the...
Unless you're John, but,
the podcast doesn't know John. You will eventually. But that's kind of the point, is that like everyone's in their own echo chamber, and when you get out of your echo chamber, like I've tried to make my X feed out of it, and all it is people like Harry Sisson, who is just like talking out of his backside, being like, yeah, this is one of the worst speeches from a president. It's like, you cannot say that's one of the worst speeches. One of the worst speeches is the Himalayas. Like there's plenty of speeches out there we can talk about. All these people are just trying to divide the country, and it's just not being...
The left has failed, though. I'd take solace in that. They've completely failed. Whether
Agreed.
they come back or not, that's up for debate. But they are genuinely deceased at the moment.
But the Republican Party needs to find a way to be sustainable.
I agree.
The Republican Party needs to build lasting impact. If Donald Trump does not make policies here and does not push Vance, all this is for naught. The left can come back easily. I mean, think, after January 6th, Donald Trump was, like, out. Like, we thought Republicans were in shambles, and then we were able to come back.
No.
And the left can happen with that, too. If they just give up the trans issue, like Gavin Newsom's doing, if they give up, like, if they actually...
Gavin Newsom is smart. He knows...
I'm glad you switched on that.
He's a terrible politician in the sense that on policy, he's abysmal. I mean, look at his state.
No.
But he's a smart politician in the sense that he knows when to pivot. He knows when to switch up. He knows he's got to come back to the middle. He's going to lose the far left, which might cost him the election, but maybe not. Because if they ever want to win again, they have to abandon these crazy issues. He knows that he's going to have to come to the middle. He knows that he might not get the donors at first, but when it gets down and dirty, he's going to get the donors.
I listened to an interesting argument on Gavin Newsom, and because he's in California, because he's the West Coast, he's not really involved with people on the East Coast. And so he's kind of
he's not really in the DC game.
He has that outsider, like he's going to run as an outsider to the DC people. And he's like the only governor I can see that actually can do that. Like, can you name me who the New Mexico or Colorado governors are?
Right.
Like, and take it that's less West Coast, that's mid-country. But like California is over.
He'll be the nominee. He'll make it far. I do think he'll lose because I just don't see somebody with that kind of track record making it past the election. But he's going to make it far.
I don't see any. There's no talent, and I think this is the huge side of the left that they have to figure out. They don't have a leader.
The right should take him seriously. I've seen people see his podcast and see that he's going to be running, and they're all like, just like, this guy's got no chance. Blah blah. It's like, take him a little more seriously. This guy is formidable in the sense that he can bob and weave all of his track record, come to the middle, and somehow pull it off.
Tell me who the left does. We talked about this last week. Who does the left have that's going to lead them? Mayor Pete? No, like he's not. Like, he came on the stage as a surprise, and he's going to get white suburban women, but that's about it. Like, who else have we got?
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders again.
He'll go for another.
Here we go, another round. bring it around. Like, but that's the thing is that but he's not a leader of the party. He's a leader of a coalition.
He is popular still.
He's,
I'll give him that.
No, he's very popular.
Did you see him go to that event? He had a lot of people there.
Because he's the only
populist Democrat.
Bernie Sanders and Gavin Newsom are the only two smart Democrats in their party.
The thing about Newsom, though, is he's not populist at all.
No.
But he's also not establishment, which is very odd.
No.
But he's still very formidable. Bernie Sanders is very popular. I mean, like I said, he's still
power.
Popular.
Bernie Sanders can draw a crowd like no one else because he goes to draw crowds. It's like Donald Trump. Donald Trump's more of like the showman, and so it's kind of fun to go to an event. Bernie Sanders is grassroots.
Yeah.
And like, you could say a lot against Bernie Sanders. You cannot say he's bought and paid for. He's very,
maybe by the pharmaceutical industry a little bit, but
I don't think it's that I really don't think Bernie Sanders cares about that stuff. I think
I'll say this. He definitely believes what he says, for sure. And
he's
very
an idiot,
consistent.
but he believes what he says.
What he says is insane. What he says is just straight Marxism. But,
he genuinely does care. And I think that's something you can't say about a lot of people on the left. But anyhow, thank you all for coming to American Man Day. I know it was a little bit of a weird show, but Weekend just continues to be the same shtick every week. So
right.
We'll see you all tomorrow, though.
Take it easy.